Okay, so for this lesson, we're gonna be looking at an artist. His name's Paul Klee. Here's a photograph of him. And Paul Klee is a painter, and he's also somebody that loved cats. And he had cats, and he would paint cats. And in particular, here's a painting of his. It's a drawing that he painted. And so you can see there's the cat and there's the bird that he's included. And there's a reason I've put these two images together. I actually want to contrast, and I want you to look at the difference between a realistic or a photorealistic picture of a cat whose proportions are correct and it looks exactly as a cat should look, and the way he's drawn and the way he's painted the cat, because that will tell us something about his particular style and what he's most known for. So if you were to examine the two and I were to ask you, what is it about his style that makes his drawing and painting of a cat different, unique, yet still recognizable as a cat? Some of you might say, for instance, that it has colors that are a little bit more muted. It doesn't have all the detail that the other cat has in the photograph, all the different types of patterns of fur. Some people have said that the face, the proportions are actually a little bit off, meaning it actually almost looks like a square of the face, whereas the cat's face almost looks much more triangular. And you'll notice that they've taken away a lot of the details as well. So if you take a look at the, I don't know what this is called, I think it's the muzzle, all these little dots where the whiskers come out, they don't have any of that. But the thing that I want you to notice most is that the shapes of things he has simplified. And what ends up happening is the shape of the eyes, you can tell they're eye-like, but they end up looking more like diamonds, right? And the shapes of the ears end up looking like triangles. And the nose, this isn't really a triangle, but this way he's drawn it is a triangle here. And even the I think it's the snout, I'm not sure, the nose, he's drawn as actually as a perfect heart. And the part where the lips are, or the chin, I'm not sure what that's called, he's drawn as a triangle again. So his particular style, Paul Klee's particular style, is he creates simplified versions of what we see in the real world. And in particular, he uses easy to recognize shapes. If you were to follow a tutorial about how to draw his painting or reproduce his painting, you see with just some simple shapes and a few steps and several lines, you can easily reproduce the likeness of a cat. And so that's very much his style. He uses simple shapes to reproduce the likeness of things. He doesn't aim for photorealistic. He aims for a simplified version that kind of has just the essence or the most important parts of the cat, so that we can tell it's a cat, but it's not realistic like an actual photograph of a cat. Here are a few more simplified versions of reality. This is one of his paintings called Castle and the Sun, and you can see he has, for the most part, used triangles, rectangles, squares, a couple of circles or semicircles. And if you can't quite see it, if you kind of squint, meaning sort of close your eyes but not completely so that things look blurry, you can kind of see all these triangles end up looking like rooftops of houses. Often you'll find houses inside of the walls of a castle. And this part down here looks like a tree, actually. The way he's got these diamond shape and triangular shapes, and in particular he's colored them green, and that really helps. I'm guessing these are the towers or turrets that make up the actual castle portion. this semicircular part, I'm thinking it could either be a bridge over moat leading into the castle, or it could be an arched doorway leading into the castle. I'm not quite sure. And this obviously is the sun, as in the title Castle in the Sun. In the head of a man, he's taken the shape of a head, and normally people have an egg type shape or an oval type shape for head. It's usually longer than it is wide, but he simplified it into a perfect circle. None of us have spherical heads, actually. And again, he's got those same diamond shaped eyes, and the eyebrow, it's almost like he's winking. He's just made it as a triangle. And the part I really like the most of this actually is the mouth. He's used these two tiny squares and rectangles, and you almost can't even see it, but because you know where it should be, you know it's got to be a combination of a mouth, and it might even be the nostril. Actually, that's the part I actually like the most about this. So if you haven't figured out, we're going to be using simple shapes to create images of things that we can recognize, just like Paul Klee. I'm going to play a short movie here. I'm not going to play the entire thing, to kind of just give you an idea of a little bit more about Paul Klee. So let's just watch this.
Hey, Maddie, do you want to make puppets with me? And then we can put on a puppet show!
I'd love to, Dada. But first, I want to do a painting about the dream I had last night. I dreamed you and I were flying over a river and trees.
Ooh, sounds like a fun dream.
Yes, but I can't figure out how to do the painting, how to get everything in it.
I was just reading a book about an artist who made puppets. And he also did paintings about his dreams.
Paul Klee. A painting of a cat?
There's the cat.
I wonder if he dreamed about a cat.
Let's go find out!
But I was just about to start my paint.
So you can see inside Paul Klee's studio as they enter, lots of
Wow.
squares and rectangles. Simple shapes.
We're definitely in an artist's studio. Oh. There's something strange about this studio.
There sure is. Maddie, whoa, puppets, and they're moving on their own. Very strange.
Have you seen a cat? I'm looking for my cat. Impossible. My drawing has escaped from the paper. Something very strange is going on today.
We think so too.
Da-da strange. Da-da wow! Floating fish swimming in the
You
air.
can see there's the
You
man.
have a studio.
It's not usually like...
These are your puppets? And they can fly. It's like we're in a dream.
Dreams, of course. I bet I'm having a dream right now. I must be inside the dream.
Duh. I think we're inside Paul Klee's dream. You were talking about dreams as we came here.
Da-da. Oops. Maddie wanted to see how Paul Klee painted dreams, and I wanted to see your puppets. The puppets!
Dreams can inspire my painting, but so does music and going places.
So you paint whatever you feel like?
Yes, but I don't paint at random. I have rules of composition.
Rules of composition?
In every painting, there are some hidden lines that make it balanced.
That sounds difficult.
Yes, if you think about it. But no, if the balancing lines are in your artist's eye. What could be more balanced than eyes? One on each side. So now, I must balance these.
So there's those diamond-shaped
what if
eyes.
I paint in eyeballs that point in opposite directions.
That's balanced.
And
then you'll see
I
with a
paint
few
the sides
strokes,
of the cat's face or
it creates a
ears,
cat.
And then for more balance, we have the cat's nose right in the middle.
So very simple, very quick. That's his style.
I'm losing my balance. I found my balance.
And that was how you made this painting? With balance?
Yeah, but it is like music. Not all the notes balance together. They are often different. In artwork, balance does not mean making both sides the same. It means harmonious, like a piece of music. All the different parts working together. The hidden lines in the painting are very simple, and they help to fill the whole canvas.
And the oval shapes of the eyes. And the ears up the top sides like triangles. And the nose is also shaped like a triangle.
And then I put a bird at the top.
It looks like the only thing on that cat's mind is the bird.
And with the heart nose, I feel like the cat is happy that he likes the bird.
I see. Have you
Okay, so like we were saying, Paul Klee uses simple shapes, and shapes can typically fall into one of two categories, either geometric shapes or organic shapes. And usually we focus on things like geometric shapes in math. The easiest way to know whether it's organic or geometric is to consider whether or not you can easily identify and name it, and whether somebody else will name it in the same way. So for instance, everybody will know that a three-sided shape will always be a triangle, and everybody will always call a four-sided shape where all four sides are the same length and they form right angles are squares. Whereas these shapes here, somebody might call this a green blob, a green long blob, and somebody might call this, oh, that's a yellow blob, whereas somebody else might say, oh, that's that mango-like shape, and somebody might say, oh, that's that blobbed turquoise shape, where somebody might say that's a starfish kind of shape. So you can't really easily identify the names of organic shapes, and that's because they typically change all the time, because like in nature, things grow and they change and they're never the same. Whereas in geometric shapes, they tend to always have a certain pattern to them. We're going to be focusing on using geometric shapes. And because we are online, we're going to be using the computer to make them, because computers are not so good at making organic shapes, but they are great at making geometric shapes, because geometric shapes follow patterns. And so we're going to be using computers to use that. And in particular, we're going to be using Google Slides actually to make a composition using simple shapes. All right. What I'm going to have you do in a moment is you're going to be going into your Google Classroom stream, and you're going to be opening up some files. So I'll show you in a moment. And just before I forget, the other thing I want to show you is that with simple geometric shapes, you can combine them into a fairly complex idea. So you can see here, individually by themselves, you just have ovals, triangles, circles, squares, and rectangons, and some pentagons. But when you repeat them, when you combine them, when you arrange them, you can make some pretty interesting images just using simple shapes. Okay, so let's go open up the slides, the images you need now. So inside of your classroom stream, you're gonna find an assignment that says assignment 2, drawing with simple shapes in Google Slides, or something that sounds like that. And inside of that, you will find two attachments. One of them has a purple background, and one of them is has many smaller images to it. We're going to use this one for now. So I'd like you to open that up. And when you open that up, that will look something like this. It's got a purple background, and it should say Lesson 1, Picking Up Shapes. So try to go and open it up right now, and I'll give you a few moments to do that. Okay? Okay, so hopefully you're able to open that up. And I want to explain to you that we're going to be doing a tutorial. We're going to be showing you some basic shape creation tools and techniques in Google Slides. And some of this you might already know, actually. Some of it you might not. And I just want to make sure everybody is on the same page and kind of has the same set of skills. So I do apologize if some of this is a little bit slow for you, but I just want to make sure everybody has the same set of skills, because not everybody is so good with computers. So you're going to be working on this purple slide here. I'm actually going to be demonstrating in something that looks just like yours, except it has a black background. So this is the one I'm going to be doing the demonstration on, and this is the one that you're going to be trying the demonstration of the techniques on. Okay? So I'm just going to switch to my version right now. Whoops. And the first thing we're going to do is we want to talk about picking up a shape so that we can do something to it. You probably call that selecting a shape. So the way we do that is here's this red square, and I want to pick it up or put it in my hand so that I can do something to it or with it. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to take that cursor, which is the arrow-shaped, white arrow-shaped icon that I'm moving around, and we're simply going to move it on top of the red square. And you'll notice that when I move it on top of the red square, if I press the left mouse button, if I click on it, it changes into the same square but with a blue outline around it. So that blue outline tells you that you have picked it up or you've selected it. You can do something with it. If you click back on the background, the black part, it'll deselect it or it will put it down. So I'm going to have you try that now on your slide, where you're going to select it by left clicking. And once you've done that, great, it's in your hands. Then you can just deselect. So go try that now, please. Okay, so that was pretty easy. And now we're going to move to lesson 2. And you have something that looks just like this too. So it's easy to pick up 1, but if we try the same technique to pick up 2, it doesn't work so easily. So watch, if I take my cursor and I try to pick up the red and the blue, oh, I can only pick up 1. And you know that because that blue outline goes around only a single square. So we need a different way to pick up both. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to move our cursor not on top, but just to the outside of the shapes. And we're going to left click. So while pressing the left mouse button, as we do that, we're going to continue holding and draw a rectangle around whatever we would like to pick up. And when we've drawn a box that contains or holds whatever we want to gather, we're then going to let go. And you'll notice when I let go, now that blue outline goes around both red and blue shapes. So that means I've selected not one, not red, nor blue, but both red and blue. Okay, and again, if you want to deselect, or put it down, just click on the black again. So you go back into your version of that, and you try to pick up both, again by left click, continuing to hold, drawing a rectangle, and releasing. So you try that now. Okay, so now we're going to move on to lesson 3, and it's nice to be able to pick up stuff, that's great, but we also want to be able to do something with it, or to it, or with it. So we're going to do the same thing, except this time we're going to pick it up, we're going to select both of these, and we're going to move them to this pink box here. So just like before, we're going to create a blue outline by drawing it with the left button. We're going to let go. Now we've got both green and orange selected. And then to move it, you'll notice that when the cursor is outside, it just looks like a white arrowhead. But if I move it on top, you see how it changes into a plus sign with 4 arrows, or what looks like a compass. That tells you you've selected something and you can move it. You can drag it now. So I'm going to left click. And as I continue to hold the left mouse button, I'm going to move it over to this side, just like that. And then I'm going to let go inside of that pink box. And now I've moved it from here to there. So you try that on your version, lesson 3, and then we'll continue from there. Okay, so it was great to be able to move from one spot to the other, but sometimes you might want to keep what you originally had and have another copy somewhere else. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to select something, and we're going to copy it, and then we're going to move it. All right, and you will know this technique as Control-C, Control-V, right here, where you hold the Control key and the C key to copy something. And then you press the Control button, the Control key and the V key again to copy it. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select it. And while it's selected, there's that blue outline again. While it's selected, I'm going to, and you can't see me doing this, but you're going to press the Control button, the Control key, as well as the C key together and let go. Now you don't see anything, but what's happened is inside the computer, it said, okay, I've made a copy of that. It's in its brain, all right? And then when you press the Control key and the V key together again, you'll notice that the computer said, okay, I'm going to copy what I know, what I've copied. Oh, sorry, I'm going to paste a copy of what I have in my head. And here's that copy. And then because it's selected, if I move my cursor over it, you'll notice it becomes that compass icon again. I can just take that, and then I can move that into the purple rectangle over there. Okay, so give that a try on your copy. Okay, so I made the shapes for you ahead of time. What you're going to do now is you're going to make the shapes that you want to use. And the way we're going to do that is right now, there's my cursor, that kind of a white arrow. If you take a look at this ribbon here, this is what we call a toolbar. And along this bar, there's one in particular that looks like a circle and a square. And we call that the shape tool. And if you click on that, you'll notice it gives you 4 options: shapes, arrows, callouts, and equations. We want to use the shapes option. And when you click on that, you'll notice, or when you hover over that, you'll notice it gives you all these options here. The first one here is the rectangle option. The one next to it is a rounded rectangle where the corners are rounded. And on the second row, you'll see ovals. This is an isosceles triangle, and this is a right triangle. So we're going to use rectangle and right triangle. So to create that, we're going to choose rectangle. And you'll notice it creates what looks like a target. And that's the target or an X or a plus. So that's the target for the first corner. So when I left click and then I drag, I'm going to create the 4 sides of a rectangle when I let go. I'm going to deselect that. And now I'm going to create a triangle. Same way, I'm going to go up to my toolbar, go to shape, and then I'm going to choose the right triangle this time. And same idea, it becomes a target. And I'm going to click, and you'll notice when I click and drag, it draws a right triangle for me. And I'm going to let go. There we go. So we've got a rectangle and a triangle by using the shape toolbar, or the shaped tool, sorry. Okay, so you give that a try in your purple version here. Okay. Okay, now it's easy enough to make a rectangle. It's a little bit more tricky to make a square. And the first thing I want you to notice is that if I try to use that rectangle tool again, when I try to make a square, it's kind of, you can make something square-ish, but you're not sure if the sides are perfectly equal, which is what makes a square, so that's not perfectly equal. So we want a bit of a more precise way to make a square. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the Shift key, and that's usually the key that is next to the Z key on the left side of your keyboard. We usually use the Shift key to temporarily make an uppercase letter, like a capital letter. In this case, I want you to notice, if I go back to that rectangular tool and I use it, I end up making a rectangle, right? But if I take that Shift key and I press it down now, you'll notice it only lets me make a square. So what that Shift key does is it's me telling the computer, keep all four sides equal, which is a square. Whereas if I let go, watch, oh, all the sides are different now, right? So Shift keeps all the sides the same. And you'll find something similar for the circle. If I go back to my Shapes tool and I use the Oval tool, I can make something circle-ish, but I can't be sure if it's exactly a circle. So again, if I just use that tool, I end up making ovals. It lets me make all kinds of ovals. But if I again press that Shift key, oh, look what happens. That oval becomes a circle, and it only lets me make circles now. So go ahead and make yourself a circle. There we go. And you try that in your purple version, okay? And then we'll get back to you in a minute. Okay, so sometimes you're going to want to have a bit of a variety and you're going to want to change the size of things. I'm going to show you 3 ways to change the size. So an easy way to change something is first you have to select it. Whoops. And one way to change it is to grab the corner. And if you grab the corner, you'll notice it changes both the length and the width at the same time. So I'm going to make a smaller rectangle. There we go. Another way is you can change the size by changing one side at a time. So I'm going to change the length, and then I'm going to change the width. The problem with these 2 ways is you'll notice the kind of shape of the rectangle changes a little bit. So if you want to keep the shape of the rectangle the same, but you make it either larger or bigger, we're going to use that Shift key again. So I'm going to select it, and I'm going to hold the Shift key down. And while I'm holding it down, so now I've got the Shift key held down, you'll notice it only lets me make it bigger or smaller, but it still looks like it's the same shape rectangle. Whereas if I let go, whoa, I can kind of change it in any way now. I hold it down again, it makes it the same. Okay? So give that a try. That's called making it proportionally, or changing the size proportionally. Okay? So try making a smaller one, a larger one, and one that's proportionally larger or proportionally small. And you can do that in the purple tutorial here. Okay? Okay, so the last thing we're going to do is we're going to change the color, because we don't want to make our drawings all green. We want to be able to change the color, and this is probably the easiest thing I'm going to show you. So again, you want to select the item, and once you've selected it, you'll notice that before, there's just a few different menus up here, but once I select it, you'll notice that all of a sudden you get all these new tools here. And the reason for that is because by selecting the shape, it's saying to you, oh, you've got the shape and you can fill that shape with a color. So notice right now the fill color is green because it's green. So I'm going to change the fill color to blue. And then same thing here, I'm going to select it. And then I got all these new options now. The fill color is green again, because I originally made it green. I'm going to change that fill color to orange. Okay? So you try that now on your version. Oops, that was originally green. Yeah, you try that on your version now. Okay? Okay, so now that you've learned all these steps, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing a tutorial together where I'm going to show you how to apply all these things. And I'm going to go through step by step with you how to create all these shapes and arrange them so you can create a simple image like this on your version in the pink file over here, or the purple file over here. And if you take a look, the files are really quite simple. The shapes are really quite simple. Circles, one triangle, 3 squares, a rectangle, an oval, and another thin rectangle. Okay, so nothing complicated, but when assembled together, it can actually produce a pretty nice image of something recognizable. So it's kind of like a clock tower of some sort, or a bell tower. I'm guessing this is either the moon or the sun, and maybe a forest here, and an entranceway. Okay, so really simple shapes are often more powerful than we give them credit for. Okay, you're going to do your own version as I do it step by step in here, and I'll give you time to do that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a circle. So we're going to go up to our Shapes toolbar, click on Shapes, and then click on the Oval tool. And remember, by holding down the circle, the Shift key, we can make a circle. I'm just going to move mine further up. And I'm just going to change the fill color to yellow. So you give that a try in yours. Okay, so now that we've made the circle, or the moon, we're going to make this rectangle here. That's the kind of low building next to it. So we're going to go up to our Shape tool. We're going to use the rectangle, the rectangle tool. And we're going to use the target and create a long rectangle. Now mine might look a little bit different from my original, and yours will look a little bit different as well. That's perfectly fine. Doesn't have to be exact. I'm going to change that to a brown kind of color. There we go. So you try that. And the next step we're going to do is we're going to make 3 squares. We're going to make one and copy it twice to make the tower here. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my Shape tool. And I'm going to use that rectangle tool, but to keep it as a rectangle, I'm going to press that Shift key down. There we go. And I want you to notice how when I've reached a certain height that looks similar to the rectangle, do you notice those little blue vertical lines appeared? Well, what those lines tell you is that it's the same height. It's as high as the rectangle if you want to make it the same. Whereas if you keep going, you notice they disappear. And if you go smaller, they disappear again. But just when it looks about right, they appear. So I'm going to make it the same height. I'm going to just move this over a little bit. There we go. And then I'm going to copy that and paste it. And here's my second one. And copy and paste that again. And here's my third one. I'm just going to move these down a little bit. And you can use the down key on your keyboard to move it down too. Whoops. Okay, there we go. Mine's a little bit shorter than the original. That's okay. Just going to change the color. And I'm going to make this red. And this one's orange. So you give that a try now. Make those 3 squares and by creating and copying and pasting. and then change the color. Okay, so you should have been able to do that no problem. We're going to create the triangle, and then we're going to create the circle that makes the clock. So we're going to go back to our shapes tool. And this time we're not going to use the right triangle. This time we're going to use the equilateral triangle, or the isosceles triangle. So again, I'm going to use my target, and my target sets one side of the triangle. And I'm going to make a sharper roof this time. Change that to brown. And I'm going to make a circle. So I'm going to hold that Shift key again. And then I'm just going to move this on top. Now you'll notice when it's right in the center, it creates those red lines that tells you it's right in the center of the square. So that's kind of where I want it. Whoa, that clock looks so big. Oops. Just going to change the color to red again. So yeah, obviously mine's a bit off the proportions, but that's okay. You kind of get the idea. So you try that now. Make the triangle and the circle. So the last thing we're going to do is we're going to be making the trees. And the trees, you'll notice that it's really just an oval and a rectangle, and then I've just copied that arrangement 2 times to make what looks more like a grove of trees or more of a forest, right? So simple shapes. So this time I don't need to hold... Oh, one more thing I want to do. Because it's kind of small, I kind of want to zoom in a little bit. So I'm going to use this zoom tool here. I don't know if you can see it's a magnifying glass. And I'm going to zoom into 200%. And I'm just going to scroll down. And that way it should be easier for me to work on the details of the tree. So I'm going to use my oval tool. I'm going to create my tree. Now, I made my clock tower a little bit short, so my trees will look a lot taller this time. And then to make the trunk, I'm just going to use a rectangle. Now, my rectangle is a little bit thick right now. So I'm just going to go and just change the thickness of it. There we go. And then just move this over. Beautiful. And before I copy them and paste them, I'm just going to change the color. So I don't have to go change the color of too many of them afterwards. I'm going to make it yellow and orange. There we go. And now I'm just going to select both. And then I'm going to copy and paste. So there's one. Whoops. And there's a third one. There we go. So I'm just going to zoom out. And the way you do that is you just click on the zoom tool and you click on fit and it'll let you see the entire slide. So there we go. We've got a version of that. And again, just by using circles, triangles, squares, ovals, and rectangles, we can actually make a pretty nice image. Okay, now if you're in grade 7 or 8, there is an expectation that you can do something a little bit more challenging. And we're going to make this bird together. And you've got that on yours as well over here. Where is it? There we go. So you've got this bird there. And it's a little bit more challenging usually to make natural things. So like animals or flowers, just because they typically tend to look a little bit more rounded and not so squarish and geometric. So we're going to start off by, and if you take a look at it, it's really just ovals, triangle for the beak, circle for the eyes, and a rectangle for the body. And the only thing with the body is I've just, instead of choosing the sharp rectangle, I just chose one with a rounded edge here, a rounded corner, I mean. Okay, so we're going to start off first by making the 3 um, the wings for the oval. Okay, so I'm gonna use my shape tool. Oops. And I'm gonna make an oval. Whoops, that's not what I want. There we go. So there's my first oval. And you'll notice the way these are rotated a little bit. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select it. And I'm gonna copy and paste. And this time, if you take a look at the second one, when I select it, I want you to notice that there's this blue vertical line that looks like an antenna sticking out of it. That allows you to grab it and rotate it. And it actually tells you the degrees that you're rotating as well, like on a protractor. So I'm just going to take that and I'm going to move it up to make the wings. And you can adjust that as you see fit to make it look right. So there's my first. Second one, I'm going to copy and paste it again. And I'm just going to rotate it a little bit more. Whoops, like that. There we go. So we've got 3 wings there. Or sorry, 3 feathers to make a wing. Now you'll notice, so you go try that now. So now that you've made the 3 and you've rotated them, what I'm going to do is, you'll notice I've got a pair of feathers here to make the wing on one side, and another pair of feathers to make the wing on the other side here, on the left side. So instead of making it again, I'm just going to duplicate it. I'm going to select the entire group. And then I'm going to copy and paste that. There we go. And I'm going to move it down here. Now the nice thing about having a whole group is, instead of, see how these are turned some more? Instead of rotating them wing or feather by feather or oval by oval, I'm just going to keep the whole group selected, or if in case you unselected it, you can select all of it again. And then I'm just going to rotate the entire group. That looks about right. And I'm just going to move it into about the right spot. There we go. Maybe just a little bit forward, actually. There we go. Okay. So you try that now. So now we've got the 2 wings, and we're going to make the body, the eyes, and the nose. And we've learned how to rotate. And we've also learned how to rotate an entire group as well. So this time, instead of selecting the rectangle, so I'll just show you the difference. This is a rectangle, where the corners are normally square. I'm going to choose a different tool this time. I'm going to choose the one that says rounded rectangle. So if you notice, I make this one, the corners are rounded, and it gives it a little bit of a softer kind of look to it. And that's good because, you know, animals usually look rounded and not, you know, sharp cornered like that usually. So I'm just going to delete this one, and I'm going to keep this one. And before I forget, so I can tell the difference between the wings and the body, I'm just going to change the color to a yellow. There we go. And you see how this one is rotated? I'm going to rotate it as well. Whoops. I'm going to grab that little rotation. And then I'm just going to make this bigger, like the size of the other one. And there we go. We've rotated. Now, I don't know if you noticed there's a problem. And the problem is the wings are behind. That's a bit of a problem. And the reason the wings are behind and you can't see them when they should be in front is because we created these before we created the yellow body. And so what ends up happening is each time you create something, it ends up underneath what you create next. So because we made these first and we made the yellow body afterwards, the yellow body ends up on top. So what we need to do is we need to actually bring these wings on top. Now before I do that, I'm just going to give you time to make that body because I forgot to do that. So go make the body now and rotate it. And make sure you use the rounded rectangle to do that, okay? So try that now. Okay, so what we want to do now is we want to actually move these three somehow on top of this, onto a layer on top. So I'm just going to make it easier, I'm just going to move this so it's out of the way. And I'm going to select all three of these. So now it's selected because it kind of contains all three ovals. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Arrange menu. Do you see the Arrange menu up here? So there's Slide, Arrange. It's just above the Shape tool, Arrange. And then the first choice they give you is Order. And right now, that wing is further behind, and that's why it's kind of hidden by the yellow rectangle. I want to bring those wings to the front. So if I bring it to the front, you can't see the difference it makes right now. Looks the same, right? But if I take that yellow body and I move it back, do you see what happens? Oh, look at that. The wings now look like they are closer to you. They're in front of the yellow body. So order can be changed by going to Arrange, Order, and either bringing to the front or sending to the back. Okay, now my bird looks a little bit wonky right now. I'm just gonna maybe make it a little bit. Just gonna fix this a little bit because it's kind of bothering me. I'm just gonna move this lower down, and then we'll move the bird's body back. There we go. That looks better now. So the last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna make the circle and the triangle, and then we're done. So I'm gonna use my. Oh, sorry. Before I forget, you go and try to change the order now, so that the left wing is in front of the yellow body. Okay, try that now. Okay, last thing we're going to do is we're going to make the circle for the eyes. So again, use that control, or sorry, the shift key. So there's the eye. And then we're going to make a triangle for the beak. Now, when you make the triangle, it ends up looking something like this, actually. So we're going to have to rotate it so it looks more beak-like. And you just might need to change the size a bit to make it fit the body a bit better. There we go. So mine's a little bit different. If I had more time, I would kind of move it around a bit until I was happy with the way it looks. But you can kind of see by just using simple shapes, oval, rectangle, circle, and triangle, you can make a bird-like drawing. Okay? So I'm going to have you go and finish that, and then I'll talk to you again in a moment, okay? And then we'll talk about your final assignment. Okay, so for your final assignment, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be using simple shapes to create a design of some sort. And for those of you that are finding this a little bit difficult, what I would suggest is you stick with something maybe a little bit simpler, like a building or a city of some sort, or cityscape. And the reason for that is you'll find that by simply using geometric shapes, you can come up with a really interesting design by kind of combining them, repeating them, arranging them to make a really interesting design. So this is a student's design where they've got conifer tree. Is it conifer? Like evergreen trees. This one is similar to my original, but they've made an H-shaped building, and this one is a symmetrical one. It's much simpler, and that's okay. And they've also used a crescent as well. So typically buildings tend to be a little bit simpler. If you're in grade 7 or grade 8 and we're probably looking for something a bit more challenging for you, you might want to try something that's more organic or more complicated. So you'll see in this one, they made a Ferris wheel here. So it's really just a circle and a bunch of triangles and then a bunch of rounded rectangles to make the the carriages, and then a bunch of rectangles to make the structure, right? So Very simple shapes, but combined in a really kind of creative way. This one here, this person has made a poppy by using a series of hearts in a circle. Right, so you could easily make flowers, something organic. You kind of just have to think about what the shape of that object is and how you can use simple shapes to kind of recreate the likeness of that. And someone here has made a panda eating bamboo, and here's some trees in the sun as well. So you can get quite clever with these things, okay? And I'm pretty open to what kind of image you want to create. Obviously, the ones that are organic are a bit more challenging. So if you want to challenge yourself and you want to go for a higher grade, definitely make something a little bit more, natural. You're going to create that on... Oops, you're going to create that on the second slide here. And before I forget to open this slide, if you go back to your task, your assignment, you'll see that that second slide with examples is the one that I'm referring to. You're going to open that and it will look something like this one over here. Okay, and you're going to be creating it over here. You can change the background color if you wish. So the way to do that is you go to background up here. So change background. And then you can change the color to any color that you want. So I'm going to change mine to maybe a sunrise kind of color. Right. You can also use gradients if you want. So if you go back to background, you can use a gradient. And you'll notice that gradient means what you refer to as ombre, for instance, right? And as far as shapes, I'm okay with you using any of the shapes in the shapes menu. If you want to use the stars to make star shapes, that's fine, but don't use the speech bubbles because they look really strange, actually. If you want to use X shapes or plus shapes or parallel line equal shapes, that's fine too. Don't use the arrows because they look a little too arrow-like. And you can easily make them using... Actually, I suppose some of the arrows are okay, like the simple arrows are okay. But any of these shapes here are, for the most part, pretty much fine. Okay? So let's see what you can produce and have fun.